Vivekananda Suraye Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. The topic you have seen on the screen, science versus religion. Today we shall look into this. What is religion and what is science? Albert Einstein, he made a statement. He said, science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. Maybe for him, the science and religion are two separate things. Probably the great scientist meant they need to complement each other. But if you see our culture, we never made a distinction between science and religion. You need to know, you need to understand that we never had a religion. Here it is all spiritual process. Science basically means quest. Search for the absolute, search for the truth, search for the ultimate, search for that one thing which explains the whole. Kasmin bhagavo vijnate sarvamidam vijnatam bhavati iti. By knowing which you can know everything. Okay. You just want to find out that one which actually has brought this multiplicity into existence. Once you know that, you don't have to know anything more. So the goal of science or the goal of religion is one, that is to know that ultimate source of existence, which explains the whole. The objective is same. But here in India, we never made a distinction between these two, that science and religion. They never came in conflict with each other. Like in Europe, in medieval period, there was conflict between science and religions. Because their religion actually is belief, more of a dogma, established belief and an established dogma. A new scientific discovery came in conflict with the dogma, and there was a lot of clash. But in India, it never happened. Why? We never approached religion as a faith or as a dogma. No guru would ask you actually, you have to believe it because it is said like this. No, you just explore, you experiment. They only will give you a method. They only will give you a method and they will ask you to explore and use that method and see whether you will get the results or not. Generally, when you speak about science, okay, we do some research in the laboratory and the findings actually you will release for the people to observe and see. If others actually make similar experiments, they also will get the same result. They should get. That's why it's science. It's the truth. Nothing like American science, British science and Indian science. Science is science. It is the truth. Similarly, in India, we actually explore the subjective dimension with the same scientific temper with which the Western scientists had explored the physical universe. We call our scientific temper. We might need to promote scientific temper among children. Instead of asking them to believe something, some superstitions, okay? But this, you have to believe, you can't question. We never say like that here in culture. So the scientific temper is the same. The attitude, you want to search, you want to probe the universe deep, so that you would get that ultimate truth. So when you actually focus your mind on the external world, you will get these physical truths, God. And that's how actually so much of technology, so much of progress has happened in the world. Progress at a material level. So in spite of all the progress that we have achieved, we are not that happy. Still something we want to know. Everybody has curiosity and everybody has a question in their mind. What brings me ultimate joy, ultimate happiness? We are not fulfilled as yet. We are seeking that fulfillment. Science has helped us, has brought us some comfort and convenience, made actually material life things simple in our material life. Body has got a lot of comfort, but now actually the whole world is wondering, is that the ultimate or we need to do something more? So we have in the process of creating comfort for the physical body, we have neglected the subjective sciences. Our rishis actually knew it very well from the very beginning. From the very beginning, they were very clear where they had to invest the knowledge. Some time back, we discussed. So we have to know that one, or the ultimate unity, which explains the whole. How are we to know that one we call God or the truth or consciousness? Whatever the name that you want to give Bhagavan, you can give Ishvara, the Lord. But we don't see the Lord. We don't see Ishvara. Okay? Now how to know? We are the only species which can, know that. We have got the brains to explore. No other creature has got that kind of brain. It cannot even pose the question, all other animals. So you have to approach the truth only through the creation. Creator you have to approach only through the creation. You don't have any other option. You are not able to see the creator, but you see the creation. And if you want to know the creator, you have to go through the creation. So, among the things that the Lord has created, we have studied this. Actually, human being is the highest. So, if you don't know the human being, your study is incomplete. You may know everything about the physical universe. The fundamental mistake that we do is in the process of our exploration of the physical universe, exploration of the objective world, we forget the explorer. Today, as a generation, we are so focused on the experience and the object that brings us experience that we have forgotten the experiencer. We never question the genuineness or veracity of the experiencer. How true the experiencer is. Who is the experiencer? In 1905, Albert Einstein propounded his theory of relativities, where he said that time and space are dependent on the observer. So that is the conclusion that he has come. Time and space are dependent on the observer. So who is the observer? Man is the observer, I am the observer. Who are you? You don't know. Right? Without knowing you. So the highest generalization that these great physicists that they had come to is this. That if you really want to know the existence, if you really want to know the mystery of the existence, it is not the observed that is important, it is the observer. If you don't factor in the observer, your study is incomplete. You will never be able to crack the mystery of the universe. So our rishis had just started where actually the modern physicists left out. Observer is important, they said, and then they did not put the next question, who is the observer? Man is the observer, what is man? They have come to the conclusion the man is just a physical entity, maybe a psychological entity, physical and psychological. Physical we know, the physical body, and the psychological mind and thought we know, and little emotion we know. They have come to the conclusion that is a problem, but the rishis never had come to such conclusions when it comes to man. The rishis, we don't know. I have my body, my body you say, my mind you say. So you have the body and you have the mind, but you don't know who you are. You never put this question to yourself. You never explored your being. You have never gone into your own self. So I said, you are so focused on the object that brings you some experience of pleasure and the experience without ever questioning the nature of the experiencer, the genuineness and veracity of the experiencer. That is called subjective dimension. So now the division has come that this is an objective universe. I am enjoying the world. I am looking at the world. I am separate from the universe and the world. Only when that separation is there, actually you will consider, you will take the objects and you will have enjoyment. But when you don't make any separation or segregation between the object and the person who is enjoying the object, and if you just turn your attention to the subjective dimension, who is the experiencer? I am the experiencer, and who am I and what am I? And if you go deep into yourself through meditation, through dropping the I by selfless service, There are so many methods that we have discussed here, all the spiritual processes. If you can drop the mind, this distinction between the objective and the subjective will cease for you forever. Now we see two things, right? The objective world, I am, man and the universe. Once you get deep into meditation and you get into the samadhi by dropping this high consciousness or by dropping the desire, what our rishis found was this. They said it is all homogeneous existence, it is all one God and one consciousness. The two never existed. The differentiation is all an illusion. The multiplicity is an illusion, diversity is an illusion. It is all projected by the mind. You never question the mind and its veracity. That is your problem. That requires little sattva. If you are too full of rajas and tamas, your orientation will always be towards the external world. Our senses, the Lord created a human being in such a way that senses are always outward bound. They only go out all the time, seeking the objects continuously and constantly. You need to pull them back. No, I will not satisfy, I will not give you this pleasure. Pull them back. You start pulling them, and then afterwards the senses stop going out, and then you would be able to look into yourself deeply. Forget about getting into deep meditation. Even to know the kind of slavery that we are in, you need to be contemplative, you need to meditate. What kind of slavery that we are in? Absolutely no control over thought, absolutely no control over emotions, absolutely no control over our feelings. This is our nature today. So once you start meditating, you'll understand the inner slavery. If that slavery becomes, too painful for you, I don't want to be in this slavery. There is some compulsion going on all the time. I don't want to have this thought here, but the thought is coming. This is a kind of slavery that we are in. You want to have full freedom. Freedom, you mean that. Your thoughts should be under your control. Your emotions should be under total control of your being. Then that is a subjective dimension. Then you need to explore this piece of life. This becomes your laboratory, and you will search this laboratory. You yourself has to search the laboratory. But now you have come to the conclusion, this I am. When we say that this is I am, what do you mean by that? This body is I am, so I need to enjoy, provide some pleasures to this body, and then that is life. That's our understanding. It's very shallow understanding. It's a very shallow understanding. You need to explore this. In this tiny frame, God actually has hidden himself. The mystery of the universe actually have packed it here. And he has created our indriyas in such a way, senses in such a way, they always look outward. And they take the outward world for real, and then constantly struggle, and you run after the objects of the world, and you bring something and you try to satisfy, enjoy yourself through them, but real happiness doesn't come because the subject is changing. It doesn't require great genius. The subject is changing, right? Even if you consider yourself as the physical body, but this is constantly changing. How long you'll be able to enjoy this, the world of senses? Not for too long, right? Because it is changing. It is coming closer to death. At least that should awaken you. Who am I? To the question. Am I real? This physical body, is it real? The psychological body, mind, is it real? But that kind of inquisitiveness is not coming because you have already come to conclusion that I am the physical body. The goal of life is to provide as much comfort as possible to this body and one day die. That's all. This is very, very narrow understanding of life. That's why actually deep search into one's own being is not happening. But whereas in the past, our rishis had this understanding that the study of the universe would be incomplete without actually studying this thing. So the only way for you, the only avenue, the only path that you have is to know the truth, to know the mystery of the universe, is to probe deep into the nature of your own being. So Albert Einstein said that time and space are dependent on the observer. Who is the observer? The next question, no. Even when he said that science without religion is lame and religion without science is blind, for him these two are two separate things. They need to go together. They need to complement each other. That's what he meant, the great scientist meant. But in India, science and religion are not two separate entities. They have never been. Science and religion we never had. It's a spiritual process. They are one and the same. We use the language of empirical science and subjective science. Empirical science is science of matter, the physical universe. You explore the physical universe, you will discover some truths. Okay? And you are also part of this universe. And so when you study yourself, actually, you will actually discover some truths which are subjective truths, the spiritual truths. The nature of the Maya is such, the universe is such that it will not allow you to study this being. So your study will always be incomplete if you don't actually factor in your own self. So the rishis have understood this, and where these modern scientists have stopped, and there they began their search Time and space are dependent on the observer. Who is the observer? I am the observer. Who am I? Yes. It's not a simple question. To turn inward, to look into yourself, where I am just the physical body or the psychological body, or is this something beyond? And then they went deep, and then why we need sleep, what is happening in sleep, the physical universe disappears, there is no body consciousness, there is not even awareness of the mind. And where am I in deep sleep? Where am I going? So what is that state actually? Why can't I have that state while when I am in wakeful state? These questions agitated them, and then they did penance, tapas, the practice austerity, asceticism, and then they cracked the mystery. And then the Samurtasya Putra, oh man, you are not ordinary. You are the child of God. You are immortal. There is that immortal dimension. It needs to be explored. You need to turn inward. The bhakti, the meditation that we do, the selfless work and karma yoga, and all these things are just means to get to that truth which is deep within you. So there has never been any dichotomy between science and religion here in India. But in the West, of course, there was dichotomy. So this is the ultimate generalization that the modern physicists have arrived at. The observer is more important than the observed. So observer is man. What is man? We have answers. So we have theory, enough of theory, but you have to put that into practice. We have the principle laid out now in our scriptures. Whether Buddha said or Shankara said or Vivekananda said, the principle is laid out. This is the method. This is the means that you need to follow. If you experiment with this piece of life, by adopting that principle, you will get to the truth, to which actually, they had access. Ultimately, they had realized. And they said, we also can realize, but this is the principle, the method. But now first you have to subscribe intellectually to the method, and then you have to experiment with this. Of course, things are not conducive for that, then otherwise everybody would become a sage. Every one of us would have become a Buddha or Vivekananda by now. So many circumstances are not conducive to that. So you have to make circumstances, conducive circumstances, favorable to you. That is your job. You have to do it. You have to create such environments. The Rishis actually never thought any sacrifice too great to get to the truth. Right? They were ready to give up the life itself. If I don't get truth in this life, I will actually explore in the next life. But I will not give up my attempt. That was the kind of determination they had. And they were ready to face death. They had the gumption and guts. So to attain to truth, one birth is nothing, one word is nothing. Let it go. Let it perish in the attempt. That was the courage with which they had explored. And of course, they had the truth and then declared the truth for us. So, if you just see the world as a physical entity, what are we? The animals and human beings compare. We human beings think that we are very beautiful physical beings, but no. Okay? Animals are equally beautiful. Who can say? Who has to judge? Right? Who has to judge? You may look upon a dog actually as a low creature, but dog doesn't consider itself as a low creature. Physically, it's more resilient. Who can run faster, a dog or a man? Dog runs faster than a man. Many animals have that greater talent than we have. As a physical body, I'm saying. As a physical entity, if you compare, forget about the intellect and all the spiritual, things that you can do, and just compare yourself as a physical being with any other beings created by the Lord. They are far superior to us in terms of muscle power. You just see a lion, how much of muscle power it has. An elephant. In terms of beauty and grace also, grace of the movement also. According to Aldous Huxley, horse is the most beautiful animal that God has created. A full-grown horse, you see how beautiful and majestic it looks. A lion, actually, when it walks, you see the gait of the lion, how majestic. When we walk, actually, as human beings, we don't, bring that kind of grace. Definitely there is beauty if you have eye to see. So, as a physical entity, there are animals who are far superior than human beings. In terms of power, in terms of, grace, in terms of majesty. Just actually, elephant, fully grown, a tusker, how majestically it walks, gracefully it walks. It has beauty. So as a physical entity, we are not actually superior to any other animal. The only faculty that has actually made us separate from other animals, superior from animals, is this intellect. The faculty of intellect and the power of imagination. So how many people have used this imagination correctly and in a great manner? Very few in the world, right? How many great scientists actually? You can count them on fingers, a few hundred at the most. the people who have impacted the human society and who are remembered in textbooks, for example, like Newton and Galileo, Archimedes. But you know what Newton said about his discoveries? We consider him as a great scientist, but he said that I'm just playing on the shore of that roaring sea of knowledge, he said. What he meant to say is that I am just on the fringe, I am just on the circumference of that sea of knowledge. What I have found is insignificant compared to what I need to find. What I have known is insignificant compared to what I need to know. The scientist had the humility. He had the humility that what he knew, what he could discover. So gravitational, a small law of the physical universe, there are millions and millions of such mysteries. They are there, actually. You need to discover them. So, because the universe is so vast and so complex and so phenomenal. And God has created the universe in such a way that it will engage you for eternity. It will engage you for eternity. Today we have brought specialization into every field of life. So much that every branch of knowledge. The more you explore, and what you find is actually there is a lot to be explored. There's unending exploration in every field. You just see in every field. You just see engineering and medicine. How much of knowledge we have added, but how much more it is there to be discovered, to be known. Unending, right? So that's the reason actually our brains get heated up, because the universe is so complex. It will engage you for eternity. So our rishis have understood that this is not the way. By exploring into the physical more and more, you will never be able to know the truth. So they said, let us go from the particular to the general. The particular is too complex. And it is so complex that all the human beings, even if they invest their intellectual energies in that direction, they will not be able to know the universe in full. For eternity, it will engage you. That is the nature of complexity that is there in the external physical world. So why did this question arise in their minds? Kasmin bhagavo vijñate saramidam vijñatam bhavatiti. 60, 70 years is the life. And I want to know everything about the physical universe. How many doctors, how many engineers, how many scientists, for how many years actually they have been exploring the universe. This physical body, you just asked today, great doctor, how much he has known about the physical body, right? Today, this scientists, so there is so much to be known. Unending the universe is. The search will go for eternity. So they had the wisdom. So this is not the way. It's a trackless desert. The more you get into that, and more actually you will be confused, because your knowledge is too inadequate to understand. And that's why they had this question, that the ultimate thing, let me know. Let me go from the particular to the general, from the phenomenon to the noumenon, from the concrete to the abstract, from the finite to the infinite, from the limited to the unlimited, from the ephemeral to the eternal. So that was the question. Let me go. I don't want the creation. I want the creator. As Swamiji said, Swami Vivekananda, I don't want the science of the made. I want the science of the maker. The science of the maker is spirituality. Science of the made is physics, biology, chemistry. The rishis, all the rishis had used more or less the same language. The science of the made is too complex. This lifespan is not sufficient even to know 0.0000001% also. The brains that we have, the lifespan that we have is not sufficient even to know the 0.00001% of the physical universe also. So I don't want the science of the made. So I want the science of the maker. That is spirituality. It's a science. That is also science. This is also science. So what I need to know the science of the maker, to know the maker, yes, study this. You just try to know who you are. You just explore your own other dimensions of your personality. You got stuck at the physical and the psychological. There is a third dimension to your being, that is the spiritual, which is the infinite dimension of your being. From that infinite being, actually, the whole universe has come into existence. The source of the universe is throbbing in you. And there, actually, it is homogeneity. Everything becomes one once you get to that spirit. Then all your questions, all your doubts will get, over with that one discovery, knowing your own self. The great physicist Niels Bohr, they said that I go to the Upanishads to ask questions. This scientist had great humility, Niels Bohr, and he said, whenever I make a statement, don't consider it as an assertion. Consider it as a question. When I make a statement, don't consider it as an assertion. Not that I found something and this is the ultimate truth. I don't say that. We are just trying to find out the truth. It is only a question, he said. It's not the final statement. I have not made the final statement. So he said that, see, in physics, when the particles of matter, they were behaving like waves, and waves of light was behaving like particles. So, these physicists were they bit perplexed. Then they said that the universe is random. They came to the conclusion a lot of entropy. It is entropy. So this fact actually Niels Bohr had discussed with Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein said, no, God is not playing dice with nature. Okay, there is symmetry, there is perfect order in the physical universe. Niels Bohr said, there is no perfect order, it's entropy, it is disorder, it's a paradox. There is only a semblance of order. Apparently there is order, but there is no order, it is all entropy, disorder, chaos. How can you say? And Albert Einstein asked, Bohr said this, you just see, the particles of matter are behaving like waves, and waves of light behaving like particles. How do you explain this paradox? Of course, Bohr has introduced this complementarity principle, and through that he tried to explain, and he made a statement like, contraria sunt complementa. Okay? Contraria sunt complementa. What he meant by that statement? Opposites are complementary. Okay? Opposites are complementary. He came to a conclusion because he wanted to explain these paradoxes. Paradox is something which cannot be explained logically, right? Something we consider paradox. Why? It is logically, it cannot be explained. So he has come out with this complementarity principle to explain the particle physics, and then he said that this opposites actually meet here. Opposites are complementary. But our Rishi is actually very clear. Opposites are not complementary in the relative world. You make a wrong statement. So now, another day I was hearing a talk where this Sadhguru said, today 35% of the global population is obese. The children, I believe. 35% of the children are obese, and 35% of the children of the global population are malnourished. It's a paradoxical thing. 35% are obese, 35% are undernourished. Why? We don't know. We don't have an explanation. That is the fact. We all know actually the people who have a lot of appetite, they have very little to eat. And those who are very rich but they have no appetite. Why? It's a fact. It is there. And the people who can feed the children well, educate them well, they will have only 1 or 2 children. And the individuals who cannot feed them well, okay, they beget half a dozen of them. Who cannot educate them well and feed them well, they beget half a dozen. And those who can feed the children well and educate well, they will only go for 1 child, 2 children. Why? This is a fact that we see. There are all contradictions. There are all contradictions that we see in our physical universe. We don't have a rational explanation for that. We have been trying to actually to minimize these contradictions, to lessen these contradictions. We have been talking about a socialistic society and a egalitarian society where the gulf between haves and have-nots. Okay, we have been trying to listen, but is it happening? We have been trying for the last 5,000 years, ever since man came onto this earth. But all these disparities, they are always there. However hard you might try, still it's like that. Why? The world is like that. World is full of paradoxes. The physical world, the relative world. Opposites, they don't coexist here. Opposites coexist only in the absolute. They say when they describe, the absolute, the Lord, the consciousness, the Rishi, the kind of language that they use. Tad ejati tad na ejati, tad dure tad vantike. It moves and it moves not. It is very far and it's very near. Tadantarasya sarvasya, tad sarvasyasya bahyataha. It is within everything and it's also outside everything. These are all contradictory statements. That is very far and very near. How can that be? The same thing, how can it be very far and very near? Anu Raniyan Mahato Mahiyan. When they talked about the ultimate truth, it is smaller than the smallest and the bigger than the biggest. How can that be? Something which is smaller than the smallest. So when you actually use mind, your intellect, to express the absolute, this kind of language comes. The modern scientists also have come to the same point, the paradoxes. And they were studying these particle physics. They had understood that this universe is entropy, is full of paradoxes. It can't be explained. Niels Bohr made a very sincere attempt to explain this by using this complementarity principle and saying that opposites are complementary, but opposites are not complementary in this physical world, in the relative world. Opposites, they meet only in the absolute, in God. So in physical world, if you say that opposites are okay, complementary, then you are making an illogical statement. Okay, I am beautiful and I am ugly. Okay, I am handsome and I am ugly. Okay, is it? Does that make any sense? Hmm? Hot ice, the word, does it make any sense? Hmm? Dark light, does it make any sense? Is it a logical statement? Dark light, hot ice? It can't. Only in the absolute you can make such statements. You have to transcend the mind for that. So it's beyond logic in that way. The problem is today we take things for granted. Such a phenomenal universe has happened. The curiosity to know the creator is not there with the generation as such. Because we take every day we see the same thing, like same sky, same sun, same moon. Suppose when you were born, the sun did not exist. Suddenly now you're 24-year-old, the sun appeared. Then you would look at the sun with wonder and an astonishment. But the pure sun actually, he was there, when you were born and still exists. And that's the reason you don't pay any attention. iPhone 12 attracts our attention because new. Something newly invented, it attracts attention, but something actually which has been there all through, it doesn't attract your attention or curiosity, it doesn't draw your curiosity. Phenomenal thing is, otherwise, if we had this real inquisitiveness and ability to observe things, focus, retention, every tiny thing actually will draw your attention in such a way that you will be perplexed and you will be wonderstruck. You will be in that perpetual astonishment. Such a job the Creator has done. You will become a mystic very soon. Today they are talking about rational mysticism and logical abstractions. We have never considered yogi actually something. Yogis speak this language. Upanishadic sages, they were yogis. They had experienced the truth. When they made statements like this, what is the truth? You have experienced the truth, please explain the truth to me. That's why they made the statements like, truth is this. It is very far and very near. It is smaller than the smallest. It is bigger than the biggest. Okay, the Upanishadic sage said. Did you get surprised? No. You are a crazy being, did we tell? Did we tell you Ramakrishna Paramahamsa? In the beginning, of course, people thought actually he was a crazy being, but afterwards they have accepted him, understood him, surrendered at his feet, and not an ordinary being. He has transcended the senses, transcended the mind. Here is a man of truth. I need to sit at his feet. Just by looking at him, actually, by sitting at his feet, I would be blessed. People went, but it took some time for them to understand. But at least we have the ability to, that much of spiritual culture in our blood to recognize a God intoxicated soul, a God realized soul. So they would always speak actually. Sri Ramakrishna said God is Saguna, Nirguna. He has attributes and he has no attributes. He is both also. He is Saguna, Nirguna. Did you consider him as a crazy man? You are making an illogical statement. We instinctively understand in this culture that once you transcend the mind and the senses, that is the language that comes out because you are trying to explain something which cannot be explained, which is inexplicable. Through the relative, you are trying to explain the absolute. Through mind, actually, you are trying to explain the entity, the Lord, the truth, which is beyond time and space. This is the language comes, paradoxical language comes. Contradictions will come. But we have accepted them. We have understood them. Yes, this is how it is. This is how it is. So the paradoxes, they don't meet here. The paradoxes actually can be explained only by bringing the absolute. If God actually is not factored in, you can't explain these paradoxes. The relative world is always full of paradoxes. So there is no distinction between science and religion here. And even for great scientists in the West also, they were all deeply spiritual, if you ask me. Max Planck made a statement. He said that it was not by any accident of chance that all the great thinkers of the world were deeply religious. This is what he said. And he, speaking about the limitations of the science, science means, for them actually, science means the physical universe. With our eye, whence I, There are two unfathomable questions for every one of us, and science has no answer to it. To what place I, whither I, from where I have come? Science has no answer to these questions. And he said, the goal of science, in words of Max Planck, so knowing the absolute, he said, to know the absolute is the one objective and one purpose of life. And also, if you just see the Western world also during 4th century and 5th century BC, when great philosophers like Socrates and Plato, Aristotle were there. During Plato, I mean, his contemporary, the 4th century BC, Archytas, he was also philosopher, he was philosopher, a mathematician, physicist. And now today, if you're a physicist, you're a physicist, that's all. You don't know much about medicine and other things, other branches. But in those days, it was not like that. Leonardo da Vinci actually a multifaceted genius. He was a mathematician, he was a physicist, he was an astronomer. Okay, multifaceted. So the Plato time also, these philosophers, they had that multifaceted genius. They were experts in many fields of many branches of knowledge. And architects, using these mathematical and physical principles, they developed and devised some machines. Those days, 4th century BC. And then when he showed his invention, those philosophers, they fell upon him. Plato remonstrated. I said, you are a fool. Such a noble intellectual exercise you are using actually to create tools for carpenters and wheelwrights, he said. Now, wheelwrights means in those days, bullock carts used to be there, no carts. The cart actually, this wooden wheel is there. Above that wooden wheel, one iron rim will be there, iron rim. And wheelwrights are the people actually who set this iron rim to that wooden wheel. This iron rim actually, it's an art in itself. It's a blacksmith they do generally. So he said, these tools are useful only for carpenters and wheelwrights, and you're using your genius and your intellect for this purpose. And he said, it's mean of you. And then afterwards, all these people were so afraid to show their inventions. Even if they had discovered something or made something and developed something, they would not show it to these philosophers because the philosophers would rebuke them. And Plato said, this vulgar crowd of geometricians, he said, that means modern technocrats in a way, they don't understand me. So they have application in use all the time, utility in view, practical purpose in view all the time, he said. So you will get to know the truth only, according to these philosophers, only when your search is unimpassioned and disinterested, without any practical purpose, utility in view. Today, actually, our science is a degenerated science, if you ask me. Why? Because when you want to do some research, your idea is that what it will bring to me, first idea. Will it help me to gain little more physical comfort? Will it help me to bring money? Or will it help me actually to gain, a award, a reward, or the most noble prize? That is the aspiration, right? So that's actually, even Max Planck denounced that. He said that great scientific knowledge actually has come only from people who have gone for it without any practical purpose whatsoever in view. And all those people only actually could invent something originally, said. So when you approach the truth of the physical universe or the subjective universe or the empirical universe, the one objective that you need to have is search for the absolute. That's all. Any other objective is an inferior object. It's no more science. It ceases to be science the moment actually you bring the practical utility or application into force, into consideration. The moment you say that for this reason I want money or I want recognition, then you are not a scientist. You are not exploring. No, that is not the science. Even Plato, that's what he said. The vulgar crowd of geometricians, they have application in view. They have the practical utility in view. And that's the reason we have given up search for the truth, right? The subjective world we are not exploring anymore. We don't want. We are not interested in. But Vivekananda says, even from the utility point of view also, if you turn your attention to the subjective dimension of your personality, if you meditate, if you pray, and if you let go this little limited individuality or I consciousness, you will attain immortality. Highest utility is promised for you. Highest reward is guaranteed for you. Highest peace, highest bliss, eternal bliss, and immortality is guaranteed for you. Is it a small utility? Immortality is guaranteed for you. So the search for the truth, for the absolute, is the only search, and that is the only purpose for which you have to use your intellect, your brains that God has given you. If you are using it for any other purpose, you are actually diluting it and you are adulterating. Then your intellect will get adulterated in a way. And that actually intellect is not fit to pursue the truth. So, truth for the sake of truth. If you invest your faculty in that direction, you are using it in a right way. That's why people like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Ramana Maharshi, they never cared for the physical comforts and all those things. The only aim is to know the truth and to know God, to know the one which explains the whole. That's all. From the very beginning, they did not deviate. They did not lose their focus. How much of tapasya they had to do to get to the truth? How much we can do just to compare? But they had the utility, they got the highest. Today we worship them, we bow before them, we construct temples for them. We have understood them, they had attained truth. We want to have their blessings. The men who have perfected themselves, men who have attained to the total fulfillment, men who have attained immortality, we worship them because of that reason. I may be a rich man, I may become the prime minister of the country, I may become the emperor of the whole universe. So what is that? It's of not any great consequence. Because ultimately I will die. If you don't know the mystery of death, so, and you will die, even if you rule the whole world, what is that? You are dying in ignorance. You have not known the truth. Unless and until the problem of death, the mystery of death is solved for you, you are not a perfect being. You are not a complete being. You are not attained total fulfillment. That fear will always, assail you. The fear will always be lingering in you. What next? Don't know. Don't know. Okay, with that question mark on your face, we leave the world. It's not a comfortable experience for anybody. And for sages and rishis, it is different. And from the utility point of view, also, Swami says that it is highly rewarding if you invest your time and energy for spiritual pursuit. And those who attain to the perfection, who attain to self-realization, the difference between an ordinary and ignorant soul is Yama comes and drags the soul out. You don't want to get out of the body, you don't want to leave the body, but Yama drags you out. Whereas in case of a perfected soul, he will walk out of the body gracefully and gently. Yama will not go near him. Yama will not go near him because he has already attained immortality. He will just walk out of the body gracefully. That is the difference. If you invest your time and knowledge here, even from utility point of view also, this search will give you the highest reward. So that actually you have to have conviction first. Right? You have to have conviction first. Without that, it's not possible. You won't be able to progress. German philosopher, I believe, Goethe said, the man is an obscure being. He knows very little about the world and still little about himself. He knows something about the world and very little about ourselves. Another philosopher of Germany, Immanuel Kant, he said, this ontology, study of being actually, is endless because they have not found out the truth. They have not found out the truth. That's why they made such statements. It's not easy. Because you always think, through thought and you want to know the truth. Or people have understood, with thought you cannot know the truth. Thought or mind is time and space. Unless you transcend my time and space, unless you drop the mind, you will never get the truth. This is the only culture which has produced such towering geniuses, spiritual geniuses. It was not an intellectual idea with them. Our philosophers were not armchair philosophers. Our rishis were not actually armchair philosophers. Not that just they thought, oh, this could be the reason for the existence of the universe. This is how actually the universe has come into existence. It's not a presumption, not an intellectual exercise. They dropped the mind. So it is a Buddha. What kind of courage you see? It's a desire that is making me suffer. Let me get out of the desire and see what kind of experience I will get to. They dropped it. And when he sat and he said that I will not get up. I may die. I may die in the attempt. I may perish. But I will not get up till I attain to the truth. With that kind of courage, conviction, they had searched for the truth and they got it. Exceptional human beings, if you ask me. And such human beings we have produced in hundreds in this culture. But today their teachings and lives are not studied much. And that's why you have become mediocre humanity. So if you take them as your role models and inspiration, naturally you will grow. Intellectually you will grow and spiritually you will grow. And be in touch with Swamiji's literature, Swami Vivekananda's literature. Your life will get transformed. How much of power ideas have. The whole your intellect will get refined. It will become regenerate. It will come to your rescue. It will help you. So providing these basic necessities, for little comfort to the physical body cannot be the sole aim or sole purpose of life. It's an affront to human dignity. But unfortunate, this is happening. I really pity the children who are in schools and the youth in colleges. The kind of knowledge. They are all big victims of, second-rate education system, if you ask me. The highest is not given to them. The best is not given to them. Whether choose it, they choose or not, that is secondary. You give them first. Expose them to the lives of these sages and saints and how they thought about the universe, their understanding of the universe. If you don't take them to the general, they will lose their brains. All the time, if you make them focus on the particular. The other day, we had a doctor here, PG he was doing. Suddenly, he dropped here and said, "Oh, I'm an orphan, Swamiji, I want to stay here." It doesn't seem like an orphan. So, afterwards, we found out that he told a lie. And he said, "I'm not interested to pursue this PG. This brain is so taxed. You have created so much of ignorance in the name of knowledge, if you ask me. Knowledge, explore the physical more. And books are actually, getting bigger and bigger in volume. And these children have to study, the youth have to study all these books. Torturous, right? All in the name of knowledge. So go towards the truth, just. You will get joy. Your joy also will keep increasing. But you go to the particular, you lose in the mage because the particular is so complex. The physical, that's what I said. The universe is designed. The design of the universe is such that it will engage you for eternity if you're just focused outward. Don't turn your focus inward and just be focused outward and keep exploring the world. You will come here millions of times, millions of births you will take, but still your search will be fruitless. It will not be complete. You will not be able to come to the truth. You need to turn inward. This is here. The truth is locked here. So all these great physicists actually have become philosophers too. In fact, Adolf von Hornack, in 1911 actually he was the head of the Max Planck Institute for Advanced Study in Germany, Berlin. He said, people say that our generation lack in philosophers, but that is wrong. We have philosophers, but they are in different faculties, a different department. What is the department? Physics. And whom he considers philosophers? Albert Einstein and Max Planck. If you just see the last statements are more philosophical than physical, if you ask. So people say that we don't have philosophers in our generation, but they are there, but they are sitting in a different department, a different faculty. So he considers them, the director of this Max Planck Institute for Advanced Study, as philosophers. True. Niels Bohr explored it. He said, I go to the Upanishads. So for a parallel, for all the paradoxes that we have come across in physics, if you really want to know, for a parallel, we need to go to Eastern mysticism, Niels Bohr said. People actually talked in parables. Why? Because of this. Because the truth you cannot explain any other way. So in that way, they have almost come closer to the metaphysics, the physicists, the philosophy and physics actually they mingled there. But in our country, science is only one word. But today, this empirical science you call as science, as I've already mentioned it in some of my previous talk. Padartha Jnana you consider as the only science. Empirical science, that is the subject to science, science of this being, science of this piece of life. That is science, this is science. So what Swamiji meant when he said, I don't want the science of the maid, I want the science of the maker. Science of the maker is spirituality. Science of the maker is our religion. People know religion is personal. It is no more a science, so it can't be studied in schools and colleges. It's a faith. It's never a faith. It's exploration. Science means quest, quest for truth. What is the ultimate conclusion of our rishis? You just see the physical universe by studying the physical universe. You will not get to the truth. The observer is more important than the observed. So study the observer. Get to know the truth about your own self. From where this I is coming. What is the source of I? You keep saying daily 10 times, 100 times, I. What do you mean by that? I. What does it refer to? You explore it, you go deep into it, as Sri Ramakrishna said, like onion. You keep on peeling the onion. Then ultimately you find nothing. That nothing is everything. You just go and explore, try to find out the root of the I, take your steps back, and that's all. It disappears. Once it disappears, the mind disappears. When the mind disappears, only one entity, that is consciousness, that is God, that is the truth. Even if a few steps in that direction, actually, you'll become a blessed human being. Few steps. So keep, doing prayer. So other sadhanas that are available to us. Sri Ramakrishna's life is a great source of light, great for us to get inspiration. What kind of spiritual sadhana I need to do? Again and again, Sri Ramakrishna says that for Kali Yuga, the sadhana, the simplest sadhana is repeating God's name with bhava. God and God's name are one and the same. There are many stories, culture. The name and the object to which the name refers is one and the same. It's not a simple thing, but to get to the faith, that divine name, uttering and chanting of divine name will give this kind of fruit. To get to that faith actually is very difficult. It takes a lot of time for people. So many times the sages have said that just with bhava, with love, you keep repeating God's name, you will get to the truth. You will become a mystic. So here, mysticism, the word mystic actually is also a misnomer. It's an English word, right? Mystic. The word that we use is yogi, a perfected human being, a sage, a rishi. They use the word mystic because your experience is mystical to me. I cannot understand it. That's why you are a mystic. Your experience, Sri Ramakrishna had that experience of the divine. So I can't understand his experience, so I, name him mystic. So they use that word, mystic. But in our culture, we never use that word. We say yogi, a perfected human being, a sage. So I can't understand it. Does it mean that there is no way to understand that? Does it mean that there is no such experience possible? It's not like that. So the rational mysticism, just as actual physical laws you explain, you experiment in a laboratory and explain logically, and these spiritual laws are also can be explained logically. All our spiritual truths are logical explanations of the absolute. This is rational mysticism, not that it is actually beyond rationality. The same scientific temper, the same investigative mind, the same inquisitiveness, actually, if you focus on this subjective, you will get to the ultimate truth. So, without wasting much time, turn your attention inward. The external comforts and pleasures, they come according to your prarabdha. Okay? Even if you strive hard, you will not become a billionaire if it is not written in your destiny. The last birth, you are a great person. You practice a lot of charity. So that punya only will make you a billionaire. Otherwise, you will strive. Everybody has got only 24 hours. All are becoming billionaires or what? You don't need. How much you need? Two pairs of clothes, a little roof over your head, and 2 square meals per day. The rest of the time, you don't know what to do. That's why you mess up the world. Rest of the time, you have to do pray, you have to meditate, you have to repeat God's name. You have to use your energy only for that. Your time is ticking. You are coming closer to death by the day. So sooner the better. Employ, engage in this sadhana. Whatever the energies that you are left with, invest all that in this direction. So we shall stop here for today. We shall meditate just 2 minutes before we disperse. Om